these things, I'm gonna sound like such a boomer right now. It's unbelievable. Welcome into a supplemental piece of episode 7. Craig and I took our editorial rights and decided to cut out a piece of episode 7 that aired on Monday of this week. We cut out a small part, one, to make episode 7 a little bit shorter, but also because very important topic that Craig and I discussed that we wanted to kind of highlight on its own. And that topic is gambling awareness and addiction awareness. So unfortunately, it is a very prevalent part of a lot of people's personalities. And we wanted to kind of highlight that and provide some resources and some stuff for those who may be struggling or who may think they may be struggling with that. So the piece you will hear coming up is a small segment of episode 7 that was cut from the original, and it has to do with gambling awareness and how you may know some signs that you may have a gambling problem. And if you do not think you have a gambling problem, it's worth a listen anyway. There's some great resources that Craig will discuss, and also maybe in the future may be useful just in case. We hope that you find this useful, and also we hope that nobody has these issues. But if you do, please do seek help and talk to somebody.
So the information we'll be talking about towards the end of the episode, we will also link in the description a website and a channel that we're talking about towards the end, including the gambling hotline. So please look out for that information at the very end. Or if you stop at any point in the video because you realize you may have a gambling addiction problem, again, just go to the description. The information and the links will be there.
Which is to be a responsible gambler and addiction awareness. All right. So we talked about the trips and the planning and stuff, right? But a topic that doesn't get talked about a lot because it's kind of taboo and nobody wants to talk about it because you don't want to identify as, somebody who struggles with this kind of stuff. But like, it's super, super important. All right. So responsible gambling. All right. Gamble responsibly. We've said it, I don't know how many times on this podcast. Never gamble with money you can't afford to lose. It's the most true thing you'll ever hear from anybody. I'm not just saying it because we said it, right? And if you do have a problem, there's resources available. We're going to get into some of those. But in every single episode, every single video that is posted on this channel, on my channel, on Craig's channel, there's always a disclaimer in the description if you scroll down far enough. And there's always the gambling hotline and a few other resources that you can find down in the description below and on every video that we post. If you are struggling with something like this, make sure you go down there and you go hit those links and stuff. But we're going to talk a little bit about taboo subjects of responsible gaming and addiction awareness.
Well, how many times have you been to even your local casino and you've just seen people dump money and they just keep buying in and keep buying in and keep buying in? And it's like they just don't learn from their mistake on how to keep making money, but they just keep shelling out money until it's gone. And then they're either angry, pissed, or depressed. And they walk away, either get drunk, get belligerent, get carried out of the casino, only to come back the next week and do it all over again. That's a pattern. And, it's a pattern with, you may have a gambling problem. There's so many addictions in this country and gambling is one of them. And some of the ways we want to kind of talk about what are some of the things that you can be aware of and how can you maybe self-assess yourself, which I know sounds weird, but how do you do a self-assessment? Do I have a gambling problem? A couple of questions that you might be able to ask yourself, am I chasing losses with bigger bets all the time, like constantly? Chris, I know you've seen that at tables of people just shelling out money, but then we talked about martingale last week. People just keep going and doubling their bets, thinking they're going to win it all back, and they don't. Another question you can ask yourself, have you ever lied about how much money you've spent at the tables to maybe a spouse, a loved one, your mother? I mean, I don't know who you live with, but I don't care. But, have you done that? Have you lied about how much you've actually spent gambling or where the money came from? Like we already talked about, do not play with money you cannot afford to lose, because when you lose it, you're either going to get angry, pissed, drunk, depressed, all those things. One final question you could probably ask yourself, and then, I want to get your thoughts on this, Chris, too, is, do you gamble to escape stress or boredom? Because if you do, that could be a pattern that you see and that you're always stressed. You're like, "Ugh, I can't take it anymore." You go to the casino and you blow what's in your wallet. It's not fun. It's not fun to watch either. We've seen people at the table buy in, shell out, lose, buy in again. And we're not talking 10, 20, $100. We're talking people that do this with thousands of dollars at the table. I just talked about the guy in Atlantic City who got his hand up to $1,000, lost it, did it 5 more times. I mean, I don't know how I would walk away with $5,000 loss. But if he's a regular, because I saw him later in the weekend and he did the same thing. So that seemed like a gambling problem to me. You know, Chris, and you can talk about this. We've known people in the craps community who have had gambling issues, who've had to step away from the game for a while and really get some help. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. Let's get your thoughts, Chris. I've been jibber jabbering.
No, it's true. And like, definitely want to preface all this by, if there's nothing wrong with needing help, right? We all need help with anything in life. So like if you do need help or you do need to step away from the games or just not go to the casino, things like that, like there's nothing wrong with that. It's actually good that you can recognize that. So applaud yourself if you are going to take a break from gambling or you seek help or something. Like kudos to you for recognizing it or listening to maybe loved ones or whatever tell you that you need to do that, because it takes a strong person to actually go through with things like that. So keep that in mind. But yeah, there's a lot of things that go into it, right? Craig hit pretty much all of them. And the questions to ask yourself, right? The only other question that I would ask myself too is, I guess there's two. The first one would be like, do I need to do this? Like some people need to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And why do you need to do it? Is it because you want to and you're enjoying it, which is usually not the case? It's you need that fix, right? Same thing for people who, smoke, drink, all that kind of stuff. It's like you don't know how to function without doing those things. So that's why you do it. Right. And I'm not knocking the other things. They're not the best things for you, obviously, but like, plenty of people, nicotine, real bad, right? The addiction's bad. You need it to almost function. Some people need alcohol to function. Some people need gambling to function, right? Do you really need to do it? And why are you doing it? The other thing too is like when you are gambling, right? Are you super emotional that you're, like Craig said, you're stressed about it? That's a sign that you probably shouldn't be doing it, right? Like if you're betting on sports and you're watching the game and you are freaking out like have your entire mortgage on this game, that's a sign to stop, right? If you're going into debt because you're gambling, that is a sign to stop. And again, like I said, it takes a strong person to be able to recognize that stuff and actually go through with it. Because, a lot of people, "Oh, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem." Once you finally realize you have that problem, it may be a little bit too late, right? It's never too late to get help, but you may be down, a deep, dark path that you could have stopped yourself from going down. So be aware of those things. There's a lot of factors that go into it, right? But I think one of the biggest problems, especially with gambling, right? Because in the gambling world, there's a lot of things that go into it, right? Alcohol is usually involved, drugs sometimes, all that kind of stuff. But like, I have a rule that I never gamble when I'm drinking. And why? It's not because I'm an alcoholic and I'm a drunk and I can't control myself. It's because I know that my decision making when I get or when I am drinking is impaired. Now, it's not saying that I'm passed out on the casino floor, right? But Like, I know my decisions aren't the best, or they could not be the best, so I don't drink when I play. You will never see me ever drinking. I said it in, I think, one of the first episodes. You will never see me drink at a table. It's if I'm drinking, it's Diet Coke or water or coffee. That's it. There's never anything else in there. I will drink after a session, and it's not that I'm, drinking in a bottle. It's like I'll have a drink. But if alcohol leads you to make bad decisions, think about not drinking when you are playing. I know quite a few people who used to do that, and now they don't anymore, and they've made a lot better decisions at the tables because they don't drink when they're playing. There's nothing wrong with that, right? You can wait till after you're done playing.
We probably both have known people who did that and maybe ruined their relationships because of it. One of the things that you can do if you feel that you are, assessing yourself and you're asking yourself these questions, you're like, check, check, check on all the boxes is, talk to people reach out directly to somebody or another player that you know of. There are so many people in our own craps community that I'd be comfortable talking to or coming to if I had a problem. So if you feel that you have a gambling problem, there are other people that may have been through what you're going through now and that could help you. One of the areas in this craps community is a lot of people are part of Discord. Discord has so many channels and so many people that interact all day long, 24/7. And you probably can find a spot where you know people that you're comfortable talking to and just saying the words, "I think I might have a gambling problem," is the very start. And from there, I guarantee it'll take pressure off your shoulders to say something like that. It takes a lot to say something like that. It takes a lot of gusto to say something like that because nobody wants to ever admit that they're doing something wrong or that something is taking them over or that something is controlling them. Remember, you want to be the one that controls your money. You don't want the like Chris mentioned before, and it was a great point about people being at a table and that they have to have that scratch that itch of going to I got to get to the tables. I got to get to the tables. I don't care how I get the money. I got to get to the tables. And then all you're doing is you're blowing your money at the table. It's that itch that you feel you got to scratch. Yeah, that's a problem. And we've known people again, like we said earlier, we've known people in the community who have had gambling problems and have had to walk away from the game for a long period of time. And it's sad because, there are some people in the craft community who I would really miss if that was the case. Chris and I have already talked about there's plenty of people in craft community we couldn't give a shit about. But, when it comes when it comes to, a serious issue like gambling and this addictiveness, we're glad that we could probably list you 10 people right now that we would be comfortable talking to if we had this kind of issue or problem. Um,
Yep.
Anything else you want to say about that, Chris?
If people are listening who think they may have a problem and like you don't know somebody to talk to, drop us an email. Craig and I will get you connected to somebody. Hell, we'll get you connected to one of us and we'll chit chat about it. But we'll get you connected to resources. Again, resources down in the description below. And one other thing I wanted to say about the whole gambling addiction thing, these things, I'm gonna sound like such a boomer right now. It's unbelievable. These things right here, and if you're listening to the audio only version, I'm holding my phone in the air. All right. These are detrimental and they have caused many problems for many people, especially for gambling. All right. The world that we live in now, it's such a consumption based society, right? You see these clowns doing stupid shit all the time online, and you think, oh, I can do it. Next thing you know, you've blown thousands of dollars trying to do what they're doing, and you realize, that was stupid, doesn't work, right? Also, you can gamble literally anywhere on your phone now. Like, now, for me, right, in the state of Pennsylvania, I mean, obviously sports betting, right? I can play blackjack, roulette, three-card poker, craps, variety of other games, literally on my phone. I don't have to get up from my seat. I could do it right now while we're doing the podcast if I wanted to, right? That's problematic for a lot of people, especially if you don't have control, all right? So One word of advice is if you are going to use apps and other stuff like that to gamble, set limits on the apps. All right. You can go into any of the apps, okay, on under your account, and you can set limits of how much you can deposit at a certain time or how many deposits you can make within a given period. Yes, you can change them. I recognize that. It's not going to foolproof stop you. However, it may make you think twice about depositing again if you have to go change your limits. All right, so be smart about this kind of stuff. It goes with the responsible gambling.
That's a great point, Chris. And I think what we need to realize is that I was about to go into the digital part of it, because we have just scratched the surface, and there is no way we could cover it all in one episode or tons of episodes. There's so much, but gambling online is just another way of reaching in and just grabbing your soul if that happens to you, and it's so addictive. I guarantee you, if anybody right now goes to your phone, goes to your screen time, and look at how much time you spend on your phone, you're gonna be fucking amazed and probably dumbfounded, like, "Oh my god, I can't believe that I spent more time on my phone than I slept last night." But and then Chris led into some of the things that you could do to help yourself. And I just wanted to also bring up a couple of things too. You talked about, setting limits, bankroll boundaries, right? Other things you can do is time tracking. I think I talked about in another episode that I had to go to the airport and I didn't want to miss picking up my son. Now, Chris said if I was on a long roll, I should have just stayed there and shut the fuck up. But because I wanted to set limits, I set a timer on my watch. And I was literally in the middle of a roll when the timer went off and buzzed my wrist. I just passed the dice. Now that comes with discipline. That's a whole different thing. But at least you set a limit. I set a limit for how much time I wanted to play at the table. And you can do the same thing when you're not stressed about going to pick somebody up at the airport. You can literally go when you go to Vegas or you go to Atlantic City and you go to play in a casino. Give yourself an hour. If you're not winning within the hour, don't play or come back and play another time. But at least you set yourself a time limit so that you knew you weren't going to blow through your bankroll that you brought to any casino or anything like that. Another thing is obviously, and Chris touched on this earlier about having an emotional check-in with yourself. You have to recognize and be self-aware when you're at the tables. Am I getting emotional here? Am I getting a little heated? Am I showing more emotion than I would normally show at any time? You have to do a little bit of an emotional check-in on yourself. Finally, and we talked about this in another episode, and it's part of discipline. You have to know when to walk away. You have to know when to walk away. You have to know that if God forbid, you're playing with money that you can't afford to lose, and it was your paycheck that you just cashed and went and played, whether it's Keno, I don't care. You know, walk away. You have to know when to walk away and cut your losses. You don't have to have a stop loss. We've talked about different things like that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about you have to know when you are not in a good space and you can feel the effects of something's telling you something's wrong and you need to deal with it and you need to step away. And that's what I think we're trying to get at. There are many key awareness points that we could point out to you all. And we're just scratching the surface on this kind of stuff. We don't really, I don't know what else you want to say about that, Chris, because again, we could talk about this for hours, literally, but we would be very minute and, we'd go into a whirlwind of pinpoints.
Yeah. And it would be a kind of a depressing topic for a lot of people, and even more depressing for the people who it kind of touches, and they really need to focus on it. But we just wanted to bring it up, and we wanted to touch on it a little bit, discuss it, and bring some awareness to it, right? Because unfortunately, right, everybody likes to talk about gambling, 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 gambling. Nobody likes to talk about the negative impacts of gambling, and nobody likes to talk about how to get help if you need help. So we just want to touch surface on it a little bit, right? Again, as I said, it's in every description of every single video, the shorts, the episodes of the podcast, it's there. You can quote me on it. You can go look. It's in all of them. But make sure if you need help, go get that help, right? That's all you got to do.
And we knew we were going to do this kind of episode, and it's not an easy episode to swallow or take that pill. But I do want to share some statistics that I think would boggle your mind because they boggle my mind. Um, Chris talked about online gambling earlier, and he also talked about the phone and being a younger generation than I am. Who this is all since you've been four. I Generation X, so I wasn't, when this came out, I was already 30. So, but for younger folk, among college students, 7% meet the criteria for problem gambling. 7%. You know how many people that is? I can't even fathom right now how many people that is. I'd have to break out a calculator, but I find that just dumbfounding. Um, Another thing I just thought was the social cost. Okay, responsible gambling means playing for fun, right? Not as a way to make money necessarily or escape problems. But the social cost of a gambling addict is estimated to be $30,000 a year. $30,000 a year. Do you know the average caller to California's gambling hotline reported spending $46,000 annually on gambling?
That's
Like,
insane.
there are tons of people in this country who only make $46,000 a year. Imagine spending your
That's
entire
above.
year's paycheck at the casino table.
Yeah, that's like above. That's above the poverty line. I think on they spend that on gambling alone. Yeah, that's wow.
I mean, it doesn't just stop there. I mean, we all know that just like alcoholics or, people that are heavy into drug use, gambling is a disorder as well. It's a recognized mental health in this country. Um, what's kind of interesting is the state that I found here, because we know people that live in Texas, people that live in, you know, other states where there isn't casino and they have to go to other states like Oklahoma. Oklahoma has the highest rate of gambling addiction in the United States at 6.2% of the population. I mean, that's just
And
ridiculous.
that's reported. Like
Correct. That is
imagine the amount of
reported.
people who aren't reporting that they have a problem.
I mean, we all know that men are 1.5, 2 times more likely than women to develop gambling addiction. I mean, Chris and I
Yeah,
could
but
tell you every time we've been to a casino, it's mostly men playing at the
I've met some
table.
degenerate females, man, in my day.
There
Oof.
there are definitely degenerate females that play slots,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
but it's crazy. I mean, some of these statistics I found were just I just sat there for a minute and I was like, $46,000 a year. Like, I remember way back when, earlier in my career, making $46,000 a year, and I can't imagine spending every week's paycheck at the casino. But
Yep.
people do it.
Yep.
People do it, Chris.
They do. They
Yes.
do. And that brings us into our tip of the episode. So, Craig, what is our tip of this episode
So
number
this
7?
episode, we've had a kind of a heavy subject tonight, and we wanted to kind of circle back to it because gambling is a problem, and we want to help anybody who is got a gambling problem, if you think you have a gambling problem. So my tip of the episode is there is a website, actually a YouTube channel that also has a website. The YouTube channel is called Fold'em, Help for Gambling Problems. They have a YouTube channel, so go subscribe. We'll put the link to the channel in the description. They also have a website, which is pretty cool. Um, they have multiple things that you can go over about just listening to the podcast, also getting a hold of your gambling problem and getting help with it. So when you go to and we'll also put a link to the website in the description. But the very first thing I came to when I came over here was there was a subheading called About Gambling, and the very first thing was signs and symptoms. So you can see if you are covered under this sign or symptom. Is like, is that you? That's what you want to recognize. Is that me? Is that what I'm doing? There's also things about quitting gambling and also what to do if you have gambling debt. So I just randomly found this on the YouTube. So I knew we were going to do a heavy subject, Chris, and we want to do everything we can to help those that are in need and may have a gambling problem.
100%, 100%. And just so everybody knows, we're not affiliated with them by any stretch of the imagination or anything. We're just trying to offer some assistance. And while Craig was talking, I did flash up that website, shared the screen, went through it a little bit while you were talking. I don't know if you saw that or not, but I did. So for the folks at home, yes, if you do need help, make sure you do get it. There's nothing worse than not knowing that you need help. So if you think you need help, you probably do need help, and go seek that help. But we hope you enjoyed this episode. All right, everybody at home. As you guys know, if you need to reach out to us, fullofchipspodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on all the socials: Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, all the good ones. Full length podcast dropping on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, all the good links and stuff. Again, we appreciate your feedback. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, you can drop them in the comments or you can shoot us an email. And if you are struggling with any gambling addiction or anything along those lines, and you need help, go look at the description down below. There's a plethora of resources that you can use to help you. And if they are not helping, again, send us an email. We will get you in contact with somebody who can help, hopefully. And we all love you. We love you all. Craig and I just love everybody.
Hey, if you have a gambling problem, get help.